The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Tuesday, the first day of March 2022. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House One Communications, People's Pharmacy, and Linders. I'm Jamal Hartman. He's Larry Marshall Jr. It's Tuesday, bro. You're back 2 days in a row. That's not like
I'm back.
The
guys were running it this March. You know, March is my favorite month, so let's get it.
I was gonna say your birthday month. Yeah. Well, folks, as you can see, Sherry and Lana, they said, look, I don't want to be a part of this today. You guys go do your thing. I'm done with you. I'm finished. And so you have Larry and myself. No, Sherry's out this week, folks, and Leanna is, taking a decent break. She has to look. Let me tell you something about these ladies. Larry's the runner. He's the marathon guy in the family, right? But the way they work, you would think that they are too, man.
Yeah,
so
they go.
They're on a well-deserved break, and hey, this is why we have a big family, so people can just fill in and add to the conversation. But good morning, everyone, and thanks for making us part of your daily routine. A good one today, as we welcome Bermuda College lecturer and economist to many, Craig Simmons, on the show. We're going to be discussing, the budget, the Government of Bermuda's budget statement 22-23. It was interesting, so it should be an interesting conversation with Mr. Simmons. The Daily Play. So it's going to be on you all. It's going to be a pretty cool daily play today, and you're going to have to know your history to get this one right. All right, so you don't want to miss that. But first, there's some concerning things happening in Bermuda that we want to discuss before we bring Mr. Simmons into the conversation. And good morning to you, to Karen Simmons. We appreciate you as always.
Morning, Karen.
So look, let's go to this story because we received it from the Bermuda Police Service last night, and I'll just go through the entire story and then we'll get to the question. But around 3 a.m. on Saturday, 26th of February, 2022, police stopped a 19-year-old male for related offenses. Subsequent inquiries revealed that the subject had a number of outstanding warrants. When informed, he attempted to run but was apprehended after a short chase. Officers searched the man and recovered a 3-inch bladed knife. He was arrested and conveyed to the Hamilton Police Station. At approximately 3:20 p.m., also on Saturday's date, police received a report of a disturbance at the National Sports Center. Now, Sports Center, obviously, there was sports taking place. Not obvious. There's other things that take place there. But officers attended and upon arrival were directed to a 15-year-old who was found to be in possession of a bladed weapon. He was arrested and taken to the Hamilton Police Station. He has since been released on bail. A second suspect, also in possession of a bladed weapon, managed to avoid arrest, and he, as he left the area prior to police arrival, however, he was also arrested and released on bail pending further investigations. One of the boys received minor injuries as a result of the disturbance. Now, folks, this is not the end of it. I could go on, and it leads to the question of the morning. This should concern everyone because it was actually a concerned citizen, a concerned Bermudian citizen, who had tweeted that there's a children's event going on, and you've got young children, not even 16 old enough to operate vehicles, pulling out knives and becoming violent in this space. The question of the morning, because when the press conference was had by the acting commissioner Darren Simmons of police a couple weeks ago about bladed articles. Maybe I was oblivious. Maybe I weren't paying attention to Leanna's news breaks because I was busy doing other stuff or something. But I didn't realize it was that serious in Bermuda. So the question of the morning is, how can we eliminate the rise in knife-related incidents? Now, we've had a gun issue in Bermuda for some time, but the fact that you can't go to a sporting event for children now without children, because 15, they are children, pulling out a knife. What can we do? How can we, is this a community problem? Is this a problem in the home? Is this a government and legislation problem? What are we doing? What can go ahead, Larry?
Yeah, I definitely think that you touched some major points. And what sticks out is two things for me. One, that yes, I feel it is a community problem, and two, that it was at a sporting event. And we touched, even though it was different yesterday, about not favorable behavior at a sporting event. I think those things start to connect when we're talking about just poor behavior. And I think this goes a bit further than poor behavior, where it's just totally unacceptable. And, you're breaking the law when you're talking about knives. And I think the concerning part is when we look at the ages of the young man at the National Stadium, we're saying, well, how did we kind of get there and what can we do? I think it's a community problem, as you stated, and we have to look at the greater issue of why this is happening, how it's been allowed. Are the behaviors being dismissed at a younger age? We used to see that all the time in the school system, and it comes forth. So when do we knock it off at the head? And I think that isn't just a simple solution.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's definitely about taking a holistic approach to the root, right?
Yeah.
The root of, okay, this is where we are. How did we get here? How do we fix it from that point where that allowed us to get this far? I just find it fascinating because, even if I've ever felt threatened, I've never felt the need to arm myself. But I think, I don't know what's going on with young people today. I don't know if, they are that scared to the point that they feel the need to carry something to protect themselves. Kenton Trott says, the unfortunate part is that we as a community have done very little to stop the gang problem we have in Bermuda. We don't want to really get to the root of the issue. It's going to take every single one of us to tackle this. Well, let's talk about this comment. I'm going to keep it up for a minute. Let's talk about this because there's a lot said in this.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
There's a lot said in this comment, and I believe it's only right that Kenton Trott is I don't want to get his title wrong, but I know he's a police officer and he's very much in the public when these incidents happen. But all that said, I believe that the comment, the second last sentence, we don't really want to get to the root of the issue. What is the fear of getting to the root of the issue? Is it the not my child?
Yeah, but too comfortable. We know these people. At times, look, sometimes people are just making bad decisions within a moment. They may not be horrible all the time. So these are people that you may get a drink from at the bar or see them and screw with that guy. So, it's that we don't want to connect them with the act, I feel sometimes, because yes, we do know them. Yes, it's not my child. And until we just call it what it is and pretty much I have enough and you know what, you're doing that, I can't hang around you, I can't do business with you, check you later. I think that is something that has to start to happen.
Yeah, and I think to your point and Kenton's point, you're right. It's going to take risk. It's almost like investment. It's what they say, most billionaires, people with a lot of money, had to take risks to get there, right?
Yeah.
And you said they're comfortable.
Yeah, you have to be uncomfortable.
Being uncomfortable to tackle this issue. And the truth is, I said it a couple of weeks ago, it's going to take risk to bring about the change that we want to see, that we need. And I know it may bother people that I always bring up conscription, but the truth is,
it was very uncomfortable.
The truth is, it was uncomfortable and it was a risk. When you fight for justice, when you fight for right, when you fight against systemic issues, guess what's going to happen? One, it's going to be unpopular. Two, you're going to risk your livelihood doing so. right? And
Yep.
3, it's going to be extremely uncomfortable for you and your close family and
Yep.
probably your close friends. So I agree that it's going to be uncomfortable. Karen Simmons, Larry.
Community issue. Behaviors that have been ignored or minimized when it started. And Karen, former teacher I used to work with her, we know that's what happens.
Yeah. So when people say minimize, you mean so and correct me if I'm wrong, because I've been a coach, but when we say minimize, are we talking about a child does something wrong and we just say, oh, that's just
It,
Timmy being Timmy?
it can be dismissed or in so many different ways or somewhat excused. And we never know what's going on with the child, or we're not with them 100% of the time and whatnot. However, most of the time you see the signs that can lead to these types of antisocial behaviors back when they're younger. And the scary part is when you don't see it and you're like, well, where did it go wrong? I think that happens, but not as frequent as you see the signs back when the 8, 9, 10 and it grows up, and now we're 15 and we're talking about we're carrying knives.
Yeah, yeah. Kenton Simmons, Kenton Trotz, goes on to say it's going to take money, time, effort, real conversations. Our young black men are hurting, afraid, and want guidance. Sean Smith says, we as parents need to have a serious conversation with our children regarding how to resolve conflict without violence. Well, I mean, Sean, I would agree, but look what's happening in the world right now. Grown men can't resolve conflicts without violence. Like the examples that are put before, and I'm not using that as an excuse. I'm just sharing the reality is that, what's before them. What are the examples before them that are showing that this is the case, that it can be resolved without violence? Because if they're looking at the news, they probably won't have a good feeling about that.
And to top on what you're saying, if you piggyback on what we said yesterday, and we're talking about adults during bad behavior, they're the example. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's looked at, it's laughed at when it's really not funny. And children process these things different. And then, like you said, we're hurt.
Indeed. Keisha Allen Smith, Larry.
This is a community issue, and getting to the root problem will be uncomfortable and cause us to look at our own behaviors and actions. Yes, I completely agree.
Keisha, that last part, cause
Yeah.
us to look at our own behaviors and actions. And folks, look, I'm learning. I always say I'm a learner. Every day I'm learning. I mean, just 2 weeks ago we had Keisha Allen Smith on this show, and I had criticized Premier Bird about something, and then exhibited the same behavior within 30 seconds later, probably. Right? This is a part of us learning the process of us being human. But the truth is, not many of us take responsibility for our own actions to be able to hold someone else accountable for their actions. So yes, I think it is important for us to look at our own behaviors and actions and trying to assist and resolve. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, and we're emotional beings. At the end of the day, if we get caught up in emotional and make a bad decision and stuff, everyone's human. It's happened. But if you're not able to sit back and reflect and say, you know what, maybe I need to handle this way and handle this that way next time, then things may have to be. Then I think we're doing what you said. We're really not holding ourselves accountable and checking our actions.
Indeed. Question of the morning again. How can we eliminate the rise in knife-related incidents? I was reading from the police released a press release yesterday. It was a bladed article, Matters, and there were quite a few incidents over the weekend involving children as young as 15. And again, that's children as young as 15. The Chico Trot says it's not just risk, but we as a community have to be honest with the issues we are facing. Indeed, absolutely. Don't disagree, Nachika. Sam Cat Place, she says sometimes it's the no fear and peer pressure that causes them to do stupid things. Also, clout chasing and I'm a bigger mentality. There are also times when trouble finds innocent kids and they arm in fear. And we can't ignore that.
Yeah, we can't.
We can't ignore that there are children that are literally afraid of bullies and what they deem people maybe from certain areas of the island. They may be in fear of them and feel like they have to protect themselves. If that's the case, then there's another problem that we have. No child should have to go to anywhere not whether it's school or just going into town to buy something or going to play their weekend extracurricular activities, participate. They should not have to worry about their safety.
Yeah, completely agree.
Kenton Trott says the Gang Violence Reduction Team and Transitional Community Services are two organizations that are genuinely providing support to our young Black men. We need to support initiatives like these. Karen Simmons, what you learn?
Look at the person in the mirror, reflecting on our behaviors to process and do better if necessary.
Yep. And Sean Smith says the current conflict with Russia is a great example to use of what not to do when teaching your children. I like the way you flip that, Sean. I agree. Sometimes it's about using all that's bad in front of you to show what not to do.
Yeah.
So I like that. Go ahead, Larry.
Real quickly, I really want us to really this is a community issue and not just a Black community issue. I think sometimes even within the Black community, we like to be separate, and at the end of the day, it touches home. We can send our children off to private school or at some point they'll interact with Greater Bermuda. And if 60% is Black and a large part of that is young Black men, and a few of them according to his genes, they will create paths, whether the working, the daughters pick the boyfriend, something like you react with them. So until Bermuda is ready to really tackle this as a community-wide issues, I think we'll be kind of at a standstill.
And I to your point, you're absolutely correct. You kind of live in bubbles in a place like Bermuda, as small as it is. Regardless of your job, you can be a delivery person. You're gonna have to engage and interact with people outside of your race or your culture or religion. However, I think from a racial perspective, I think what people focus on when they speak about Blacks is they think it's mainly young Black men who are committing the crimes or being harmed by these crimes. I think that's the particular thing. Why is it impacting one group more directly than the other? No, we can't dismiss there was a young white male who was murdered by knife crime in 2020, summer of 2020.
Yes, I want to say right before the pandemic.
Yeah, I think it was in the middle.
Oh, it might have been. Okay.
But again, to Lara's point, this is a greater community problem, and we have to tackle it. We have to get I love when people say to me, "Well, what are we doing? What can we do?" Folks, don't be fooled by this mic. And I'm going to use me because the best example I can use is me. Is this mic is a tool that I use to have conversations, but it's not the be all end all of my contribution to try to make Bermuda a better place.
Yeah.
There's work that needs to be done. When I was in Bermuda 2007 to 2010, my entire time was spent coaching and mentoring.
Yeah.
Now, everyone doesn't have time to coach and mentor. Some people have children and their own families to raise. But my point is the work must go beyond conversations.
Yeah.
And I don't want people to think that, me being here every morning with you is my contribution. No, I know I can do more, and I've been built to do more. So please know that this is a form of action, having these conversations, but there's so much more work that we can and need to do.
And simple things like maybe if you're not got the time, donations, giving your MP a call, asking what's going on, and hey, what are you guys looking to do? What's the initiative? How can I better assist? Sometimes we have conversations, but we don't ask the questions. I think question asking is needed indeed, because if you don't know how to, then how will you know?
Indeed. Ciola Wilson, she says, I don't agree with that statement that it's a community problem, not just a Black problem. How many white Portuguese students do you see acting like this? And that's what I think she's speaking about your comment, Larry.
Yes. I think what you're missing my point in totally, because what I'm saying is that people tend to have this isn't my problem. So when the gun violence first started, there was a large part of the Black community that said, as long as they keep it Court Street, as long as they keep it 4-2, it won't come. What happens? It blossoms and goes towards the greater Black community, and it's touched gun crime in every single place in the Black community. So what I'm saying, until we take it as a high thing, because all people will start to do is look to take their children out and separate it from them, and that's not going to fix it.
To his point, Jamal Hartman, Gospel Lane,
Sure.
off Marsh Folly, right up the hill, murders took place, right? To his point, the amount of people, and I wish I screenshot, right? But I'm not like that. The amount of people on Facebook between 2009 and 2012, when all the shootings were taking place in my neighborhood, to his point, they could care less.
Yeah.
It wasn't near their homes in Smiths and so their homes in Paget, or even at that time, their homes in Hamilton Parish. It
In
was
Devonshire,
contained.
some of my neighbors.
Right. It was contained. So to Larry's point, it was very much contained, as if Bermudians felt like it wouldn't come. I mean, we even have a former premier that pretty much dismissed it, saying, well, Jamaica's had crime for years. In Bermuda, it's contained. Well, I know some people don't like this analogy, but it's like an STD. It's contained until it spreads. If you don't get a hold of it, if you don't find the person who's spreading, then it's just going to keep spreading. So I get it. I do. Keisha Allen Smith says, yes, and when we as adults hold ourselves accountable, we set an example for the youth. Teresa Brangman, us as a people have to make sure we're modeling good behaviors in everything we do. And yes, we are human and fall short, but children learn from what they see.
Agreed.
Sam Cat Play said, my son's father and I co-parent, and we've instilled the fear of what mommy and daddy would do to me if I didn't do better. But he also gets plenty of love from us. This comment, I'm not quite sure if you can explain, Michael Daniels, because it looks like I saw it after the show, you copied and paste what you put yesterday. So feel free to explain if you're copying and pasting the same comment every day. With 60,000 opinions, there is no shared concerns, fears, joys, and successes. Was this not the comment yesterday? But help me understand what that means, and the greater audience, Michael Daniels. We have a guest coming up, but Larry, any final thoughts on this before we bring our guest, Mr. Craig Simmons, on for the day?
It's just very unfortunate. I think back-to-back days we're talking about dawn incidences, and most of them that do kind of impact the greater Black community, which we just want to try and get it to a better state. And it's no one solution, but I think we need to start to come up with the many small solutions that get this problem solved.
Yeah, indeed. And I on the back of what you're saying, it's definitely bigger than what we think. It's not a small issue. I think we cannot minimize the impact it's having on our community. All right, buddy, we'll see you tomorrow.
All right.
I'm gonna do my Lana Lambert impression. And folks, stick with us. We have Craig Simmons coming up we're gonna talk budget. I know you all have been waiting to discuss the budget. So let me try my Lana Lambert impression. Don't go anywhere. All right, this is the Daily Hour News Break brought to you by People's Pharmacy. I am not Leanna Lambert. Detective Chief Inspector Sherwin Joseph, who is in charge of the Specialist Investigations Department, and Detective Chief Inspector Peter Stablefit, who heads up the Serious Crime Department, recently attended and completed a 2-week Senior Investigations Officer's course held in the British Virgin Islands and delivered by Agencia Limited UK. The program, which was funded by the United Kingdom Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, is part of a Bermuda Police Service initiative aimed at continuous development of investigators. The program included aspects of the development of investigative strategies, crime scene preservation, and golden hour principles. The golden hour principles is the term used to describe the period immediately after an offense has been committed, when there is a high volume of investigative material readily available to police on behalf of everyone. On behalf of everyone at the Daily Hour. Congratulations to both Chief Inspectors Joseph and Stableford. I'm not good at this Leanna thing, folks. In other news, a 28-year-old woman is currently warded at King Edward Memorial Hospital, recovering from a knife wound sustained during a fracas in the early hours of Sunday, the 27th of February, 2022. Police were called out to the incident, which occurred at the Legends Bar, Somerset Road, Sands, shortly after 1 a.m. on that date. It is understood that the incident followed a verbal altercation which escalated and resulted in the victim having sustained a 1-inch stab wound on the left side of her back. Her injuries were described as serious, but none life-threatening, thankfully. Officers located and secured the scene, which was processed by the forensic support unit. There were several patrons inside the bar at the time of the altercation. Police are urging anyone with information on this matter to please call 211, the main police number 295-0011, or the independent and confidential Crime Stoppers number 800-8477. Alternatively, you may speak with a police officer with whom you are familiar with. Weather-wise, it could be hot, it could be cold, but our body temperatures are so different that you may want to check for yourself. Perspective. That's your Daily Hour News Break, brought to you by People's Pharmacy. I'm Jamal Hartman. Hopefully, I did a good Leanna impression. We're going to take a quick break and be back with Craig Simmons. Stick with us.
Let's face it, life can be a little wild, but shopping doesn't have to be. I choose People's, so that whether it's a prescription that needs to be filled, a toy for my little terror, or a gift for a new addition to the family, we'll see about that. Everything's available in one convenient location. Some call it People's, I call it my one-stop shop in the city. People's, we're here for you.
Hi, I'm Karen, a nurse at the old folks home. These long hours used to kill my feet until my hairdresser told me about a great place to buy a pair of clogs. Medical House. Finally, relief. They also carry uniforms in bright, bold colors, and not to mention the support stockings.
Karen, Miss Soltis bet her bet again.
Oh gosh, these days, I need all the support I can get.
Medical House has relocated next to the Dendytown Field, number 6 Bakery Lane, Pembroke.
Most of us acknowledge that there's something special about organic food. To be sure, organically grown foods are cleaner and devoid of toxic pesticides, genetic modification, antibiotics, and growth hormones. And reports that the flavors of these foods are accordingly bolder and more authentic surely resonate with lovers of good eats. Field Day is a producer of organics who deliver on these promises and ingeniously add affordability to the mix. Good news for us thrifty consumers. We're featuring Field Day organic grade A maple syrup. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
All righty, welcome back to the big show. Jamal Hartman here. It's the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House One Communications, Lindo's, and People's Pharmacy. Without further ado, let's bring in our guest for the day. We have your favorite guest, your favorite financial spokesperson, your favorite economist, your favorite Bermuda College lecturer, Craig Simmons. Welcome back, sir. How are you?
I'm well.
They miss you when you're not here. They feel like, well, where's Mr. Simmons? The budget's coming up. We're like, folks, he will be coming on to discuss the budget after it's given. So give him some space. He has other things he needs to do. But thank you for coming to engage with the audience. This is it's always an important conversation when we're talking about the state of Bermuda's economy. But before we even get into the budget, there's a question that we've had people send in to us that they wanted to know, Mr. Simmons, was, what were your thoughts? We still haven't got you that mug, huh? I'm just calling Shanta out. Shanta, Mr. Simmons is still still not got his mug. Let's make it happen. This is, if not, he's going to start charging us for this. But before we get into the convo, what were your thoughts on the resignation of the finance minister, Curtis Dickinson, so close to the budget?
Well, it's obviously, I was shocked like everybody else. And then the devil in me wanted to know why. And then I, came to my senses and figured out that it's really none of my business. And I would probably never, ever know the truth as to why the finance minister resigned so close to the budget. It's just not normal operating procedure. But I accept it is what it is. And we need to get on with the process of sort of balancing the budget, getting the economy back on track,
Okay.
this is where we are.
And understood. And I actually really appreciate your response, because I don't think it's a time to be distracted about why he resigned. Bermuda has a huge problem, and that is to balance the budget and get the economy going again. And that said, we've heard or read the budget. What were your initial thoughts after the budget speech was presented?
Well, I think I'd rather talk about the way I feel now, because when I initially hear something, normally I'm wrong. And so I'm so glad that I'm here on a Tuesday, having had the benefit of sleeping on my thoughts and mulling them over, and yeah, just allowing it's like a good wine, it needs time to get to that place where it's going to taste just right. And so I'm happy to be here on a Tuesday, having had the benefit of reflection. The one thing that stands out for me is, and I hope I don't get too nerdy, it's the glide path. So think about a plane coming into LF Wade, and it wants to, land on the runway. Our runway is the place where we've balanced the budget and, in fact, moved it into surplus. So if anyone has access to the budget, on page 30 of the budget, maybe it's actually page 28 of the actual document, but when I have it on my screen, it's page 30. There's a path that the deficit is the difference between government spending and the taxes that they take in. Whenever government spending is bigger than tax, you have a deficit. And so the glide path is about eliminating the deficit and turning that deficit into a surplus. COVID has meant pushing back the date at which we move from deficit to surplus. And so it's almost as if we're coming into the runway, but we can't touch the plane down where we originally wanted the wheels to, hit the runway. We're having to go a little further. It looks like it's not going to be until sort of 2026 when we've reached the point where we can start to pay down the debt. And that's the ultimate challenge that we face. Until we sort of cross that Rubicon, I think maybe that's a good way to describe it. It is a serious line in the sand. Until we cross it, we should all be nervous. We had an opportunity to cross that Rubicon a couple of years ago, and sort of, the government did some sort of fudging of the figures. They said, we're recovering from the financial crisis. Finally, things are finally getting going, and everything's going to be beautiful. I think that was the philosophy, and so you could kick the can down the road one more year. Well, one more year has, the unexpected is going to happen, and that's why I think it's so important to develop the discipline, the fiscal discipline, to get on with paying down our debt. And so the glide path for me is a little long. There have to be another election before we move from deficit to surplus. Before we can begin to pay any money down on this debt, there's going to be an election, because 2026, the present government's term will be expired. And the devil in me says, well, that means another group of politicians who have, serious issues with the truth. Are they going to kick the can down the road and, I'll be up St. James's before we begin to pay the first penny down on the debt? That is a concern. But at the same time, we're just coming out of this COVID situation. And here's the rub. In order to eliminate the deficit, in order to shorten the glide path, to put this plane down on the runway at LF Wade, we've got a couple of choices. We can either reduce government spending or we can increase taxes. And I understand the finance minister's reservations about increasing taxes right now. I totally get that. And you know, it is appropriate that now's not the time to start levying taxes, except on people like me. To be honest, people like me in white collar Bermuda, we've been doing better during COVID than before. Our expenses are lower. So, you know, mea culpa. I mean, but I suppose the devil is in the detail. How do you target people like Craig Simmons who are doing better as a result of working remotely? Okay. So, you know, Craig Simmons can afford to pay more taxes. But how do you pull that off? Is the problem. So, you know, I have sympathy for the finance minister and his inability to raise additional taxes. He's also in a bit of a bind. How do you cut government spending? The technical term is fiscal space. The fiscal space, we're talking about fiscal policy, FISCAL, policy. It's, you know, running government spending and taxation, government spending policy and taxation policy. That's fiscal policy. The space is rather limited. He doesn't have a lot of wriggle room. And in that sense, I'm willing to give the finance ministers, you know, the benefit of doubt. Yeah, you need more time. But, you know, it's going to be a while before we can pay down this debt. And, and then the big problem is the unexpected, because crap is coming. I mean, it just seems to be the norm that the unexpected becomes the expected. And so 2026, something's going to happen before 2026 that's going to cause us to push the glide slope even further into the future.
Well, you know, you said so much that caught my attention, and you know, people think it's so easy though, Mr. Simmons, because you said, you know, either reducing government spend or, you know, taxing, right? Now, immediately when we talk about reducing government spend, most people on the surface think that means, well, just cut the civil service, which then could create another problem, right? And then you have Talent TJ Clark. He actually writes, reduce the amount of MPs in-house, reduce constituencies to 18 and reduce their salary. He also, here we go, reduce costs to government employees by removing their payroll tax. That's a good suggestion. But again, these are some of the things that people think right away. Nachika Trott says, should the government privatize some departments? If so, what impact, if any, would that have on government budget? So we have honestly a very engaged audience, an intelligent audience, as you see by the comments by Talent and questions by Nachika. What are your thoughts on that when you think about that? Because again, spending, taxing, like we have to do something. And the thing that you said that really people should really take away from, I don't think it's fear mongering. I don't think that it's playing boogeyman. The truth is, none of us, most of us, I should say, didn't see a pandemic coming. Bermuda never truly, as Sir John said, really recovered from the last recession, right? So we know the way that economies work, something's bound to happen again. And we haven't even recovered from the last couple of things. All of that said, what is the path?
Well, the previous government, and here's a problem I see in Bermuda. I mean, it's a problem maybe around the world. Politicians, the idea of coming together, you know, we wonder why our community can't come together. Well, politicians, you know, they have a hard time listening to what the other side did. So, for example, when the OBA was in power, they did a SAGE commission, SAGE, S-A-G-E, Spending and Government Expenditure Commission or whatever. They had I was a part of the SAGE commission, and I'm going to tell you, the talent that was on that commission was unprecedented. People, as far as I remember, no one got paid. But if if we had to pay those folks, oh, it would have been in the millions of dollars. The talent that Brian Dupereau was able to sort of garner, to put to work, was off the chain. And we need to read, and I would strongly encourage your listeners, go back and check out the Sage Commission. Very little of what the Sage Commission recommended has been put into play. The Fiscal Responsibility Panel, another group of consultants that the government pays on an annual basis to guide its spending and tax. The Fiscal Responsibility Panel every single year says, look, you got to go back and look at the Sage Commission's recommendations. It's like it's falling on deaf ears, because I think there's something wrong with politicians' ability to come together. Privatization was one of the things that was talked about. Reducing the size of the House of Assembly. I mean, we've got 36 people up there. You don't need 36. Cut it down to something small. The cabinet doesn't need to be as large as it is. Those were recommendations that were made. Will they be followed? Politicians are very much like, everybody else. Self-interest is what drives them. And in some ways, it was unfortunate that the PLP won that landslide, because so many of their comrades need to be sort of rewarded for their loyalty. And you can substitute reward. Well, reward means money, right? People got to get paid for being good to the party. Yeah, it's a shame. And sometimes I wonder if Bermuda would be better if the result had been not 36, but 18, because that would force people to come together. With 36, I can do what the heck I want. I ain't got to listen to your stuff. Of course, not despite the fact that there's that huge majority, not much has happened. But the concept of a coalition. I looked at in interest of what's happening in Germany, where the German government. I mean, you've got arch enemies in the same cabinet, where you have to listen to the person on the other side. It would have. Can you imagine had the finance minister appointed someone from the OBA to be finance minister? I mean, just think about what the signal that you're sending to the country, the signal that you're sending, generally that we believe in coming together, because right now it's PLP, it's OBA, it's gang warfare.
Well, I think you're onto something. I know the One Bermuda Alliance tried that by making former Speaker of the House Randy Horton the speaker. I think I believe that was done as a way for political numbers rather than in the best interest of the country. But I take your point that it always seems like it's party first, country second. And I don't think that's the way that we're going to get out of the deficit that we're in. I just want to go to Chica Trott had another question, and there are some other people. I want to ask you, Lisa Trott has a comment here where she says the civil service can be reduced by natural attrition. This has been raised before. It is basic strategizing and common sense. Smile. What are your thoughts on that? But plus, let me just add this question. Chico Trott says, with the relief in taxes such as payroll, land, and vehicles, how will government make up that deficit? I don't recall it being shared in the budget.
Okay, so you're talking to a senior citizen, right? So I can only hold so much in the head.
All right. First, let's go to the first one. Lisa Trott about attrition. Yeah, let's go to that one first.
So one of the things that is in really short supply is talent. And the government needs talent just like any other industry, any other sector. And so attrition is one way of bringing down the cost, but you're not going to be able to attract the talent that you need to make the best decisions, the decisions that are necessary for the people of Bermuda. I think about an organization like the Bermuda Monetary Authority. that organization is growing, it's expanding. And they have to expand because international business depends on the BMA not only being bigger, but having the smartest people working for them. And so one of the reasons why the BMA is able to do things that it's able to do to support international business is because it has talent. And that talent reveals itself in the growth of the international business sector, which is really the only thing keeping us afloat. So it's not so much the numbers, although, you know, people like me need to retire and go to Leafroy House. Yes, I agree. And bring in younger people, smarter people, more ambitious people. Yeah, I do get that. But the attrition thing it's sort of almost like death by 1,000 cuts.
And can I jump in, because I'm glad that's the way. I didn't know how you felt about that, and I didn't want to come across, because my turn I can come across very strong. But Lisa Trott, honestly, attrition's not the way to go, because and I hate to say this, but this is the reality, and this is something that us Bermudians need to understand. Talent is more important than tenure. Let me repeat. Talent is more important than tenure. We have a tendency to believe in Bermuda that because people have been somewhere for a long time or done something for a long time, that equates to their ability or skill set. Attrition is not going to do it. I'm going to tell you, you need the right people with the right skills and ability to help get Bermuda out of this situation. That doesn't mean that someone who's been there that's good at their job retires and you just move someone else into that position to take over their job. So I'm glad you said it, and Mr. Simmons, because it gave me the ability to kind of say it in a more respectful way than I was originally thinking. I have some say I come across a bit rude at times. Nachika Trott's question was, with the relief in taxes such as payroll, land, and vehicles, how will government make up that deficit? She says she doesn't recall it being shared in the budget.
Well, I mean, the deficit is not getting smaller. Let me take a quick look, because I've got it up on the screen. From what I remember, the deficit is, sorry, I'm wrong. The deficit for this year, the estimate is $70 million. Last year, it was $117 million. And so, yes, that's a part of the glide slope. So one of the ways in which the government is making up for this shortfall, it's hitching. So it's hoping that tax revenues are going to grow by about 4 or 5% over the next couple of years. And it's the assumption is the economy will grow. If the economy grows, tax revenues will grow with it. That's the hope. So it becomes a politically expedient way of increasing taxes without increasing tax rates. So there's a difference between the number of tax dollars the government can collect and the rate of tax. So you should have increased the rate of tax on Craig Simmons's check from Bermuda College. But since that was politically untenable, we're looking at, well, the economic pie is going to grow, and as the economic pie grows, there'll be more tax that you can get from payroll, from customs, and so on and so forth. So that's sort of the philosophy that the government is using. But at some point in time, it's going to have to bring out the hammer, and it's not going to be pleasant.
Indeed. So when you look at this budget, when you read it, I'm got it up on my phone, but my phone keeps locking. So I'm just going to stop fighting with my phone, right? But when you review the budget, what are some of the what's some positives that can make Bermudians feel optimistic, if any? What are some positives that can say, you know what, this is a good thing in the budget that we can build on?
Whoa.
Are there any?
Wow, good things in the budget. I mean, yesterday in class, students were asking me about the digital bank, and how that sounds, exciting. And indeed, the concept of a digital bank it is exciting. But of course, we need clarity about what a digital bank is, what digital money is, as opposed to cryptocurrency. They are distinct. Digital money is money issued by a central bank. Arguably, the central bank that got off first was the Bahamas, the Central Bank of the Bahamas. And it's been rough going for them. They've only been able to issue about $300,000 worth of sand dollars. And, their economy, their money supply is like about 8 billion. The big problem with the digital bank, and I don't mean to rain on the parade, is this thing called interoperability. How do you get general acceptance of digital currencies? I mean, I don't know how many people on this call will feel comfortable about depositing their paychecks into a digital bank. And it's not going to be a government bank. It's going to be digital. I mean, we do have the benefit, I suppose, of deposit insurance, so that if the bank goes belly up, you can get your deposits back. But that sort of gives, it's an innovative, it's bold. It's not going to pay dividends immediately because, the whole digital asset area and cryptocurrency, it's emerging, and few things emerge in a linear fashion. I mean, if you look at international business, it did, today we all benefit from it, but it had a lot of stops and starts. That's just life. Things don't always have this great trajectory. There are stops and starts and stops and starts. And so with the digital bank, I think the same type of thing is going to happen. But I suppose I was glad to see that in the budget. There's not much to be really happy about. I suppose you could say, well, I'm not that sad. I'm maybe less sad to know that the government is committed to reduce the deficit. I'm sorry.
No, understood. Well, recently we had obviously Sir John sworn earlier in February, and then last week we had the CEO of the Bermuda Business Development Agency, David Hartwan, and here's what he had to say regarding Bermuda as far as our economy and attracting new business.
Beyond climate risk finance, obviously technology is another great opportunity for Bermuda. Our board especially sees opportunities in the area of fintech and insurtech. Beginning to see some exciting movement there with some companies coming into the sandbox, and then probably some announcements coming this year that they'll be coming out of the sandbox and starting to create jobs in Bermuda.
Now, you've been a fan of the international business sector. The international business sector has just kept Bermuda going, right? Mentioning opportunities in insurtech, fintech, and climate risk. Do you think that's enough to help Bermuda economically?
Well, there's two things going on here. There's sort of the generation of income and wealth. And right now, that generator is firmly seated in the international business sector, and more specifically, reinsurance. So that's where the wealth is being generated. But, we have to remember that Bermuda, even before the COVID pandemic, was divided by race. You could say black, white, and perhaps now more blue and white, or white and blue. Mm-hmm. And so white collar Bermuda is probably going to do quite well. My concern is with blue collar Bermuda, that fairness is an important part of the glue that holds society and economy together. When people take on the idea that Bermuda is no longer a fair place, F-A-I-R, in which to live, the wheels become begin to come off of the bus. People lose faith, they lose trust in the future. And so that's really my concern. It's more the issue of equality, the distribution of the income and the wealth that exists in Bermuda. And it's only going to get worse. Those people who can't benefit from the international business sector, they're going to have a rougher time. I mean, and with AI, artificial intelligence coming, if you don't have the skills to sort of fit into that kind of world, you're going to have a problem. Now, having said that, there are certain occupations, caregiving, the trades, there are blue collar occupations for which AI, doesn't stand a chance. Humans can run circles around any robot in those particular areas. But by and large, I fear for people that just don't have the skills and don't even know that they have the skills. And so my employer, Bermuda College, I think, has a major role to play. As a general comment, one of the best ways to promote social mobility is through the concept of a community college. Now, I didn't go to a community college. I went, to those four-year universities and got, those silly degrees and stuff. That's okay in terms of, if you think in terms of the internal rate of return on an investment. The highest internal rate of return on investments come from putting people into community college, because they can go there for a year, 2, 3, and bam, they're into a job. They're into that job. They start paying payroll tax. They start buying bottles of wine, paying duty on it. They get themselves a car, and they're making a contribution. And so the data suggests that community colleges are arguably the best way to get social mobility up and running. And so, and then of course, there's at the other extreme, early childhood education. That, and I learned this from one of my students teaching a research methods course. The young man, I think he runs a restaurant in St. George's now. The idea that from almost infancy, we need to be expanding the vocabulary, reading to our kids. And it's unfortunate that in wide swaths of our community, we don't spend time with our kids. We've got these devices. I see people with them. They're rectangular, and they use their thumbs to sort of scroll. People are just too into themselves, as opposed to their kids, reading to their kids, getting them prepared, because the world that young people are going to be coming into, it's going to be extremely tough. And if you don't have those skills, those literacy skills, those numeracy skills, you're going to be in a bad way. And we're not doing the best of jobs now. In terms of like a national emergency, education is really it. We need social mobility is hinged on education at every step of the way, starting from infancy all the way up to Bermuda College, training people to be HVAC technicians or to work in reinsurance. I mean, that's a lot. I understand. So let me shut up and take a question.
Oh, no, I think that's a perfect way to close it, because we had questions. I think you've answered every question, especially those who had those questions about, if talent's what we need, how do we develop it? You just wrapped it up pretty good, because Bermuda as a country, it's not all gloom, right? And I think what I took away from the conversation today is, if you're an international business, you may be okay. It's those who may not get those opportunities there. And, as you just stated, the community college example, I think something I read was, certain four-year universities where the degrees are certain, supposedly valued more in certain universities, the cost, right, of going there doesn't equate to the value you're going to get in the job. So a community college degree it probably makes the most sense. And I would advise, this is no promo, but I would advise many Bermudians to do what I failed to do, is just get those 2 years at your community college and then head off if that's what you choose to do. But honestly, trust me, it's a changing world. And we have to respond and evolve to the world that we're now in. Bermuda, it's going to be on us. And we can't keep looking to others for the solutions. We cannot keep looking to others for the solutions. Some of the solutions to all of the issues that we face are within us, our community. Mr. Simmons, we will be having you on again soon. Thank you so much for another in-depth conversation. And Shanta, please make sure that Mr. Simmons has your book in hand by the next time he comes. Have a wonderful day, sir.
Don't forget about the love.
Love. All right. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
All righty. Bye for now.
All right. Craig Simmons, folks, if you appreciated the conversation and that information that he presented, please give us a thumbs up, a love, and like. You know, I say this every day, and I really, really mean it. I want you to share these conversations. Speak with these people around the water cooler at work about these conversations. Speak about this stuff at your family dinner. Instead of talking about politics and religion and things that you're going to argue about, like who's the best out of LeBron and Michael Jordan. These are conversations that we need to expand beyond places like this, because the only people that can save us is us. And I am grateful that Mr. Simmons continues to trust this platform to engage with all of you. I put my questions on the side when you all started coming with questions this morning, because it's about you all. It's about what you want to discuss. It's about what you want to know. Barbara Tenick says, spot on once again, Mr. Simmons. This needs to be replayed 1,000,000 times. Real assessment without political bias. Kathy Rogers, as always, great conversation. Lisa Trott says, spot on. We're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to do a giveaway after the break. So stick with us. We're going to have a little giveaway. You're going to get a mug before Mr. Simmons if you get the answer to today's Daily Play correct. So don't go anywhere.
A lot happens around your home. That is why at One Communications, we have introduced affordable security and video monitoring, because everyone should be able to afford to protect their family. Anytime, from anywhere, One Home Security keeps you connected and puts security in your hands with an easy-to-use smartphone app to control everything. Home security is important to keep you and your family safe. Motion-activated cameras around your home and security monitoring within create a complete security system providing protection both inside and outside your home. Professional monitoring means that there's someone on call with 24/7 protection to notify the authorities and help keep you and your loved ones safe. We are dedicated to whole home protection with indoor and outdoor cameras, smart door locks, motion sensors, and more, so you'll always be connected to what matters most. With professional installation, no upfront hardware fees, and low monthly rates, because keeping your family safe should be affordable for everyone. Total home video monitoring and security, there's no better way to protect your home than with One Home Security.
All right, welcome back. Thanks again to One Communications, Medical's, People's Pharmacy, and Lindo's. Also, if you appreciated the conversation with Mr. Simmons, make sure you give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. And if you haven't already, I see a lot of people on Facebook today. You need to get on YouTube. Make sure you go to YouTube, you subscribe, and share, because we may not be on Facebook for much longer. So you want to make sure that you are over on YouTube, and make sure you go on our website and subscribe to ensure that you know when we're making that switch. It's time for the Daily Play, brought to you by Heineken 0.0. Great taste, no alcohol. Audience, the first person to get this answer right gets themselves a mug. It's a remember when. Here's your question. Who was the first PLP finance minister? Who was the first PLP finance minister? The first person appointed as finance minister under the Bermuda Progressive Labour Party government when they won in November of 1998. Who is going to get themselves a Daily Hour mug? It was Mr. Cox. I don't know who Mr. Gordon is, but it was Mr. Cox. We're going to give 2 mugs, though, because someone said Eugene Cox. That came through first, but I definitely clicked on Karen first. So we're gonna give it 2, but it was definitely Eugene Cox. That was the father of Paula Cox, former premier. All right. So, folks, like I said, if you haven't already, make sure you go to YouTube and subscribe to our channel. Make sure you share the conversations, and also make sure that you subscribe on our website to keep up to date. Tomorrow, don't forget, we have another big show coming up with Jason Sugdeo of Bermuda Carnival. A lot of stuff going on with Bermuda Carnival. No one knows what's going on, so he's going to come and share the latest with what's happening. Thanks again to our partners, Medical Hours One Communications, Lindos, and People's Pharmacy, for ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow. I'm Jamel Hartman. My friends, please do make it a safe and great day. I know I will. Peace.